Hey guys, welcome back to the Tough Love Podcast with Dr. John O'Connor. Today's podcast is a little bit about cooking. And the secret to my success, the main ingredient, always starts with discipline. The one thing that I noticed starting this January when I said to myself I was going to really focus on launching the coaching business, I was going to compete and win a men's physique competition, and I was going to launch another company, was that I knew that if I was going to get all these done, I had to set an end date for each one of them. And I had to remain disciplined with regards to setting a daily task list that I would reflect on every day, every morning at the end of the day, and make sure that I was hitting those metrics, so to speak, to make sure I was staying on schedule. And when I was looking at it, when I first started, almost like New Year's resolutions, you're super energetic and you're so excited. But the reality is, for most people, that wears off in just a couple days. That's when discipline takes over. And, for me, there were a lot of things that went on over the last couple of years that didn't make me happy. Just straight up wasn't happy with where my business was going, where my life was going. And if I wanted to recreate these things, I needed to have like a total recreation of myself, of my work ethic, of my business approach, what I do, how I do it, and, everything about it. So all the business coaches that kind of drew me in that I really liked, one of their big things was centering on self-care, fitness, and recreation from the inside out, and make sure you take care of yourself. So the first thing on the docket for me was signing up for a men's physique competition at the age of 50. And, I've said for probably the last 15 years that I feel like I haven't really, aged like everybody else. Kind of feel like, it's one of those things where I've been blessed to stay youthful and stay on top of, take care of myself in how I dress, how I look. But when it started to be about, this physique competition, I realized this was nothing I've done before. And you can really get insecure really quick because it's about having paper thin skin. It's about being conditioned, which in my head conditioning had always been being cardiovascular fit. This is, every muscle in your body from your waist up and your, mid thigh down has to be, shredded or peeled, as they say in this community. And it was a daunting task. I had thought that my level of discipline was, that of an exceptional level. And I came to find that I wasn't even cracking the surface to be able to accomplish what I wanted to accomplish. And much like I tell my clients when, they say, what's one of your biggest things and why you coach? I coach because I have coaches. I have coaches for my fitness. I have coaches for my business. I have coaches for my posing. I have coaches for how I speak and communicate. So I'm a big believer in that. If you want to get there fast, then learn from somebody that already knows how to do it and has done it before. If you want to get there eventually, then keep doing what you're doing. And again, most people don't have that discipline to stay after they failed a couple times. I think one of my greatest strengths is always being able to say, all right, you failed one more time, one more rep, you got this. And I think that for so many of my clients, that's one of the things that I really try to emphasize to them, that failing is part of the process. Failing is humbling, but it's also, we don't look at it as, a loss. We are learning or we're winning. That's it, right? A failure happens. What'd you learn from it? When you win, what'd you learn from it? This weekend, on Saturday, I went on stage for the first time. And, that in itself, I've presented, public speaking about medical device sales and coaching and stuff like that in front of a clinical audience. But, you know, going out, spray tanned and all buffed up and muscles out and showing off your physique is nothing I've done since since college and running out into hot body contests. So we're talking about, three decades ago. So I think, when we talk about it, the discipline that was required made me have to look at it and say, I need to stay remarkably organized. I have to break my days into 3 days. Like each day is 3 days. I have the morning, the midday, and the end of the day. And morning is about, locking in. And that's where the discipline foundation really for me was born. And that's where I would sharpen the blade, so to speak, where I'd get up 4:30, 4:45. I'd be on PEMF for a half hour to 45 minutes, recharging my body, working on any sore areas, making sure I was ready to go. At 5:30, 5:45, I'm down in the dungeon, aka my basement, and I'm doing 30 to 45 minutes of cardio, and again, the discipline for me, I get on the bike. If I'm on the bike for 30 minutes, I'm handling social media posts. I'm responding to emails. I am making sure my heart rate is staying in my zone. And then when I would switch to the VersaClimber, obviously at that point, I didn't have any hands free. So I was locked in, and that was a little bit more working on tonality, working on how I present, how I communicate to my doctors. One of the things that you're constantly learning as a business coach, a practice coach, is I'm coaching across the United States. So every time zone, every region, every state has a different personality to it, a different emotion level, a different sensitivity level. And when you come into the practice, the one common feature is that they're all hurting financially. And so they want to bring in some type of stimulus to change and kind of resurrect their desire, because it's frustrating. I don't care, if you're a surgeon or you're a chiropractor or a physical therapist or a dermatologist. I have friends that I've played golf with that are all of the above, and everybody says the same thing. You're chasing after it. And I said to myself, I was like, there's got to be a better way. And I know for me, in creating care based around the sciences that I utilize, I've created a entire, social, actually financial compensating model that works for me. And I'm teaching it, and practices are very happy with how their numbers are transforming as well. So I think that one of the big things that, that I was so grateful for during the training process that ended on Saturday with a victory in my weight class again, or my age class, was the fact that I finished 5 practices in training and 5 clinical practices, 5 different parts of the country, 5 states, and, a fantastic outcome for each one. And, I was definitely, very, taken back by that. I was beyond grateful to hear the kind words and the fact that they're still checking in with me and making sure that they're doing what they're supposed to be doing. And, the one thing I promised myself in launching the coaching consulting business in 2025 was to be remarkably available to my docs. And, actually, it just dawned on me, guys that are listening right now, I owe them a treatment plan on a case they have to work on today. So I'm going to have to get that to them and have them work on that for tomorrow. But again, one of the things that comes down to is discipline, right? Discipline following up, discipline in holding yourself accountable, discipline in eliminating procrastination. I know one of the big things that I've been working on that's so important is eliminating procrastination. And why? What does it have to do with discipline? Well, for me, I can talk a mean game and convince pretty much anybody that I'm going to do anything. The reality is, when I walk away from them, do I execute? And, a lot of times it becomes procrastination. Then I get pulled into helping somebody else or doing something. And it's not that I'm just not doing anything, but I didn't finish that as fast as I should have. And when I jump on that and get that done, that's when I find that I'm really cooking at that level, that how I want to see my practices that I'm coaching, how I want to see my own practice, which is Velocity Performance and Sports Rehab, operate, and my doctors in the practices, to emulate that style of, business execution with their care, with how they carry themselves, how they conduct their interactions with their patients. So, circling back to what we were talking about on the podcast today, discipline is absolutely necessary to achieve high-end goals, fitness goals, financial goals, relationship goals. And, those transformations only occur when you are, powering through the rough days, celebrating the good days and setting a plan for every day, not just a day you're in, but, tomorrow, the end of the week, the following week, and then staying disciplined so that you get these things done, whatever they are, that you're hitting these milestones, celebrating them, but you keep powering forward. And I think when you do that, I think that's when you see the greatest level of success. I think that's also when you feel that satisfaction, that you can be happy with yourself, your effort, your commitment, that you've tried. And not only did you try, you succeeded in building out a dream and you went after it. I've been following, not only my business coach and Andy Elliott, but a couple of other guys like Dan Martell, who I've really enjoyed as of late. And he's big on creating lists. And, it's funny because what you see, there's probably they're looking at top 10 in this space that I'm looking at. And you start to hear the similarities where it's almost like great players in baseball. And what do you like about them? The home run swing or their strong arms. Like, again, it's the same attributes that make them great. Well, it's the same thing in this business space. It's the attention to detail. It's the communication. It's, rolling with the punches. It's celebrating the wins and learning from the losses and, all these things, and having the discipline to know that if you stick to that formula, it's those that are the most consistent, and the discipline of showing up every single day, no matter what, no matter I'm tired, I'm sick, it's cold outside, it gets dark early, it gets dark late, whatever the case may be, you don't make it an excuse. You show up with the same energy, you show up with the same attitude, and you show up with the mindset that you're going to get shit done. And when you do that because of discipline, well, that's when you get to enjoy success. So, as I wrap this up, I've been trying to keep, when I don't have a guest, I try to keep these podcasts really super short, more powerful. I think there's that way. There's a couple podcast guests or hosts that I love that do that. And I think it's something to be said is, guys, if you want to get stuff done, it starts with discipline. Again, if I had, spices in my kitchen of success as a business coach, I would say discipline would be one of the top ones that goes in every recipe that I make. And again, it'll hold you to it. It'll keep you where you need to go. It'll keep you focused. And most importantly, it's going to help you get through the days you don't feel like getting through, because you're not going to quit on yourself, because that one word, discipline, is going to help you achieve what you thought once was impossible. Hopefully you enjoyed today's podcast. Again, we try to give some powerful messages, try to keep you motivated and keep going. For me, I'm beyond grateful to have the opportunity to have competed this past weekend. My discipline had got me up and, got through the strict dieting and the weight loss and the body transformation to come away with a first place, trophy, which I was beyond grateful for. But again, if I wasn't disciplined, that wouldn't have happened. So guys, again, thank you so much for joining us. Please share, like, and join us next week for our podcast. We'll see you again soon. Thank you and God bless.